Hello, it's George Lees. You know, remember the fat guy that gets the death threats from the government? Yeah, and when he plays the music that means that he's prepared to proclaim that his video will become a death threat, he has to sing the song himself. I have a tale to tell. Yeah, it's absolutely ruthless what they're doing. All of my computers are being crashed now. I've virtually got no IT that I can reliably use to make the videos. If anybody's got any old computers that I might be able to use, please donate. Yeah, I don't want your money, I just want your mind and your heart. What is happening to the world is absolutely ruthless. Let's bring you closer up to the screen now. Okay. We're back to the good looking woman again, yeah, from MI5, MI6, Imperial College London, and massive directorates. Yeah, she is on the board at the Wellcome Trust, which is about the only thing that funds UK education now. They've asset stripped everything else. Okay, and I made a brief video on this earlier this morning, just at the moment that they froze all of my computers. Okay, and my computers are getting ever so fragile, so let's get on with the story. Okay, I was last night dutifully collating information on the massive organisation that is the BlackRock asset management in America. Yeah, because of Donald Trump's crimes and because of all of the corrupted governments being linked into BlackRock as well as Blackwater and the companies that I mentioned. This is the Naomi Klein book that I failed to put in the thumbnail for my videos on how all of the asset stripping takes place. Okay, she's a wonderful writer, but she is funded by George W. Bush to divert all of the attention of the whole world onto the issues that have been covered and brutalised already. Okay, and that is the Cluny Abbey, and all of it is the same jokes. Yet this is the religious joke as well. And so let's start with that statement on Miss Manning and Buller. Okay, so the Schroders are not just the German prime ministerial family from the universities at Göttingen and Heidelberg that were immune from bombing, but they are a massive Rothschild associated company, and that is interlocked to all of Miss Manning and Buller's directorial roles. She's on the fucking, as I say. Yeah, that's a colloquial expression that is frequently used across the world by the ordinary poor people who are stolen from all of the time. Okay, so Manning and Buller, the head of MI5, the head of Imperial College London, is on the board at the Schroeder Trust. She looks after their pension funds. Yeah, she's well looked after. She's got massive directorial holdings. Yeah, and all of the stealing from the students is now supplementing that. That comes back to all of the owners through the Rothschild Bank that ran it. Yeah, so when I saw that there was a thing called the Schroeder Fund, I had to have a closer look, and the directorates are absolutely huge. There's a Photoshop from what I got from it, and that is Miss Hannah Claire Ashdown. Yeah, you've heard of the Ashdowns in religious fraud before? Yeah, and the sectarian Irish issues. Free director information, and that's all of the places that I went to look for company directors that are associated with this massive fraud that is the Schroders. Okay, allegedly they are only from London, very innocent place. They are actually Hitler's Bank. Yeah, another one of Hitler's banks. And I've got in the other room the declaration that there are. My friend from Minnesota looked up on YouTube, on Wikipedia, when I was in her presence in the shop in Kelso Square, and she told me, and we saw together, that there were 26 federal banks. Now there are only 12 again. None of them ever publish any accounts. The take from each one of them is way over £120 billion per annum, and all of that goes to the Illuminati that run them. None of them publish accounts. None of the money goes to those countries, and that is the massive Federal Reserve scam. I'll show you the evidence for that next door. Yeah, and the evidence that the bank that we're discussing here, yeah, that was shamed out of London in the 1930s because of what was happening in the demonisation and the hyperinflation in Germany, they are the bank that funded Hitler, and that's why they had to fuck off to New York. Yeah, and all of the jokes about P.G. Wodehouse and the banking scams and all of it being done with comedic issues, yeah, it is absolutely ruthless. Okay, so Hannah Claire Ashdown, we went to her, yeah, to see what she's doing on the board at Schroeder. Yeah, there's the Schroeder tab, and I'll show you a little bit further down. This is the interlocks that I've discovered already. Okay, company directors associated with Roger Allen Lees in the same boardrooms. Okay, and that is the Leeses that I'm being warned are not wanting me to drink in the Black Swan pub. Yeah. Massive fishery in Coldstream, right in the middle of John Lamont, possibly Julian Callum Lamont's constituency. The elections are looming in May. Julian Callum, get your act in gear. Mr. Roger Allen Lees, information, free director information. I can show you some of that. Then we've got the jolly jokes, and the jollies are associated with the cover-up and the persecution of freedom activists and people that expose the Royal Institute for International Affairs, and I've got them on the computer next door too. I think we'll take you there before I dissect the company registers. Okay, company directors associated with Schroeder International Holdings Limited. Look at relationships between the director and that's the company websites that have all been crashed and dismembered, so you can no longer get a list of the 600 or so that you get when you look for Schroeder on the British Business Register. And all of those listed as directors are actually corporate registrations. It's a massive set of Ponzi schemes and frauds. Yeah, and it pays the pension for really lucky people like Miss Manning and Buller. Yeah, and all of the underfunded academics who've had their pay frozen for 7 years back to back in the public sector, like all of the council workers, are the victims of this. Yeah, talked to nurses last night, they're really genial people. Their pay has been frozen, their living conditions are plummeting, yeah, and all of the elites that run it, yeah, are absolutely jollying in it. Yeah, it's absolutely ruthless. Okay, and I met some Vances last night, and that takes us into Scotland. They're relatively innocent, but the Vances are involved in the American frauds with the running of the massive Airbus wars, yeah, and the Pan Am fleets and aircraft. Massive company competing with the Concorde people and the Airbus people, yeah, that include British Airways and all the other Irish frauds. Okay, so where shall we go? Let's go to the federal banks in America. And I'm sorry, we'll get hum on this computer too. My IT is ever so fragile now. And the gods thought this was so important that they would not let me go fishing this morning. Okay, so let's get it done properly. We need to immunise that from hum. And I'll take that plug out so that that other beastie there is grounded. Okay, I'll maybe just best hold it in my hand. You can see the gist of the screen there. Don't look at my password. As if Rebecca does not know it already. Okay, Federal Reserve Bank. This is America. No accounts ever published for it since its inception. Okay, the man that has exposed it all as a massive fraud is called Eustace Mullins. That's Eustace Mullins. Okay, I've highlighted some of his statements, but there is the federal bank listings. There are only 12 on it now. My friend told me that there were 26, and I was looking at the Wikipedia page as she read the data out. Okay, so there they are. The 12 that are now declared are the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, the Federal Reserve Bank of the Windy City of Chicago, where Madonna and the mafias and all the jokes are made about the Pierces being the law enforcers that take on the mafia men there, with the baseball bats. Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, where JFK was shot, I believe, in front of the grassy mound, or the knoll. Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, that's got the word peso in it, hasn't it? It's got the word apple in it, and all of it is the joke about the Bible that the Pesos wrote. Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia with the Pi, Phi, Kappa, Alpha, all the sororities jokes and the brotherhood that are the Freemasons all over the world. And that's the Masonic P2 banks now. Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, a legacy of the British Royals. They're totally in league with the Rothschilds that ran this whole scam. Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, Federal Reserve Bank of San Luis. Lovely little map. So that the ordinary simple people can totally ignore it and go and support Madonna at the massive religious icon gestures that are prancing around at the Super Bowl. And last time, after Madonna made her gestures with all the devilish outfits and things, you had Katy Perry with the initials KP, who sings about all of the menageries, all of the Pharaoh scams, and the bloodline that is the Peso bloodline through all of human history. That's KP, like Kenyan products and KP nuts. It's Katy Perry, it's Kevin Peterson, but it is Arius Calpurnius Piso. Calpurnius Piso, the most powerful man on the globe in the whole of world history, one of the cleverest. I'm now catching up with him in every sector of life, and the banking sector is particularly vicious. They ran that in Rome 120 BC before they launched the false Jesus. Okay, let's get rid of that. I'll copy it to my new systems when I've told you the story of Eustace Mullins. Eustace Clarence Mullins, February 2nd, 1923 to 2010, was a populist American political writer and biographer. His most famous work is The Secrets of the Federal Reserve, along with Nesta Webster. He is generally regarded as the most influential authors in the genre of conspiracism. So the whole world now is in a sovereign debt crisis, and even the politicians concede that. That's the plan from the Rothschilds and the master plan from the Rockefellers and all of the other 12 families. That's probably why we have 12 banks, because it's the Illuminati families like the Rockefellers that run them, and the Rothschilds are always at a safe distance. But these people have to contest their storytelling thing and look for publishers as they're interned in asylums, as they are strung up in straitjackets. That's exactly what happens to me. And as you'll see, they expose the British Royals and the Royal Institute for International Affairs and Chatham House and all of the Tavistock things that I've told you about in my recent videos. Immediately after I was sectioned by the Queen, so that the whole lot of you could have empathy with my cause. That's why all your pensions are fucked. That's why all your savings get no returns at all now. That's why NATO's leaders are the people that give the people the gun licenses to shoot down the diversions in Dunblane, where Andy Murray is the big diversion for the Murray frauds. Yeah, and I've got all his directorial holdings and his links to Julian Callum Lamont. My representative did nothing to prevent me being sectioned. Yet the sectioning was actually seen through, but they had not got the courage to kill me because of their massive healthcare frauds and everything I've reported about the Scottish Borders Council and Tom Weatherston, who gets a mention also in the earlier video that I made this morning. Yeah, okay, so Mullins was a veteran of the United States Army and Air Forces with 38 months active service during World War II. He's a real, genuine hero. Mullins frequently visited poet Ezra Pound during his period of incarceration, yeah, in St. Elizabeth's Hospital for the mentally ill in Washington, D.C. Do you get the picture, how ruthless they are? And the call I got from P.C. Heaton to cover up my disclosures to the Justice Secretary, Deputy Justice Secretary, in the referendum meeting in Heaton, just less than 2 years ago, and immediately before the referendum, that was corrupted and is still just a mafia op for the constitutional monarchy that is still run by the Rothschilds. All of the intel orgs are run by them. Between 1946 and 1959, yeah, that's his incarceration in St. Elizabeth Hospital for the mentally ill in Washington, D.C., where the powers that be in America brought down their own Pentagon so that they could go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Mullins was a researcher at the Library of Congress in 1950 and worked with Senator Joe McCarthy, yeah, that's the McCarthy inquests into communism tainting the whole of America's fascist efforts, yeah, on behalf of those 13 mafia families. Okay, so that is the launch of a scaremongering story, and that's why the man that we're talking about here, Mullins, was incarcerated in the asylum. He later stated that he believed McCarthy had started to turn the tide against world communism. All of it was launched by the Rothschilds. You know the Marx and Engels stories. All of the funds for their training in London came from the Rothschilds, same as the Hitler Rothschilds funding and the banks are going to be explained later on in the other room. Or no, actually here. So there's a list of hits that I got when I looked for Schroeder in the text of all of the articles I've accumulated over my last 5 years as a fraud researcher. First one is the McClouds of Skye sinking ships at Lloyd's of London. Yeah, the Lloyd's Register Inspection Limited, Schroeder UK Mid Capital Fund PLC. That's all of the directorial registrations for Schroeder UK in January of 1989, January of 1990 and January of 1991. Yeah, see my video on the asset stripping by the Rothschilds of everything that was publicly owned right through from the 1970s into the current day. There's very little left for them to steal now. PDF, Schroeder's, yeah, and it's got the subtext Chatham House. So Schroeder's is openly declared to be on the list of the Queen's massive spying, intel and financial services organisations, and all of the Chatham House thing is run by the Royal Institute for International Affairs with members of the CIA, MI6 and all of the stuff that I'm going to show you about Miss Elizabeth Manningham Buller. Yeah, Barclays are run under Adair Hunters. The Schroeders are involved in that story too. That is Barclays that were defamed, and the boss was sent from London with 20 million in his pension fund as a thief at the head of that bank. Yeah, and I've been fishing on the river with his Portuguese or Spanish colleague who got the sack and the blame for all of that affair. Yeah, that's the London whale issues. Yeah, really lovely man from Portugal. Yeah, and his family came fishing with me, and all of the people that are drawn into it, it's only the lowlife that get persecuted. All of the elites and all of the Rothschild family members get to walk away from it and send coppers to the telephone to threaten me with what these people got. Yeah, it was absolutely coincident with my writing my registered mail post to the Queen, and I've still got the receipt for that in that pile. Yeah. Yeah, and there is some of the correspondence that has come to me from Michael Moore from the House of Commons. Okay, I am absolutely active. I will not stop being active until they kill me. Okay, so he's working with McCarthy in all the scaremongering things to demonise communism that the Rothschilds launched, and the false religion story is absolutely pathetic. Yeah. The secrets of the Federal Reserve, Mullins explains. In 1949, when I was visiting Ezra Pound, who was a political prisoner at St Elizabeth's, Dr. Pound asked me if I'd ever heard of the Federal Reserve System. So you can see how it gets passed on in whispers as a secret. I replied that I had not, as at the age of 25. He then showed me a $10 bill marked Federal Reserve Note, and asked me if I would do some research at the Library of Congress on the Federal Reserve System, which had issued this bill. Pound was unable to go to the library himself, as he was being held without trial as a political prisoner by the United States government in the land of the free. It does not say that there. Yeah, I added it for irony. My initial research, yeah, Pound offered to supplement my income by $10 a week for a few weeks. So my initial research revealed evidence of an international banking group which had secretly planned the writing of the Federal Reserve Act, yet not the government, a secret banking group, and Congress's enactment of the plan into law. These findings confirmed what Pound had long suspected. He said, "You must work on it as a detective story." Mullins completed the manuscript during the course of 1950, when he began to seek a publisher. 18 publishers turned down the book without comment before the president of the Devon Adair, yeah, that's the Adair things that we're looking at, Adair Turners. Everything gets covered up, and all of them get massive $1 million pensions, including Fred Goodwin, who interlocks with all of the citizens of my hometown, yeah, and all of the councillors, because none of them then can do anything. That's called coercion, and it's all through the story. Even the bringing down of the towers involves the company called Schroders. Yeah, that's to demonise Islam. Yeah, and all of the Islam story is run like the story out of Liverpool. Yeah, the funding of the the ba noise that the sheep make in every religion that is launched by these ruthless, murderous, profiteering bastards. So that's the Devon Adair publishing company, offered after years of searching for a publisher with courage to publish it. Eventually the book was published by two of Pound's disciples, John Casper and David Horton. The Caspers now interlock with the Rothschilds on their boards, yeah, and there is Casper, the friendly ghost. We'll whiz in and see him humming. Yeah, all of it is a massive joke. All of the media cover up all of the absolutely ruthless secrets. The updated edition, published in 1983, was called Secrets of the Federal Reserve. And do you get the fact that every country should only have one bank responding to the needs of the government, not to the needs of the elite people that run all wars and fund all sides, to get the numbers of the ordinary taxpayers down? The only thing that funds the countries now is the taxes. Okay? Mullins argued that there was a conspiracy among Paul Warburg, Edward Mandell House. Have we heard of Stephen House somewhere? Yeah. Woodrow Wilson, G.P. Morgan, Benjamin Strong, Otto Kahn. That's the Otto Piso family members, the Rockefeller family, the Rothschild family, and other European and American bankers, which resulted in the founding of the US Federal Reserve System and the launch of 12 to 26 in just a few months. since I asked the questions of the people at Minnesota, yeah, where all of that has been confirmed. Yet it's a massive number of banks, and all of those countries are now filled with the Jewish memorials, and all of the places where the federal banks are next to the Jewish cemeteries, to have a laugh at all of the anti-Semitic things that they launch. And I'm going to tell you that story on the other computer. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913, see how close it is to World War I, when all the big movies are made, okay, defies Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 5 of the US Constitution. Yeah, all of the things that have happened to me are breaches of the massive constitutional issues that is the monarchy running the country instead of the government. And the monarchy is there because the Rothschilds created all of its false genealogy over 160 years of fraud and rape. Yeah, that's the King of Kings, Rothschild, that raped Victoria. Yeah, and all of it keeps going on, and all of the children of Prince Charles are not actually Prince Charles's children at all. Yeah, and his real children in his real teenage love life are called Simon Day, and they live in America, and I've got their email addresses. By creating a central bank, they live in Australia. Yeah, creating a central bank issue for the United States. Mullins went on to claim that World War I, the agricultural depression of 1920, that's Woodrow Wilson's plot. Yeah, that's that Woodrow Wilson who promised never ever to take his country to war, but got coerced by a sexual scandal at not Georgetown but Princeton. Yeah, do you get the links to the monarchy that own the whole of the Empire State? Okay, so there's the man, Mullins, and I've neglected his output up till today. Yeah, I regret that now, but I do not want to dwell on him too long because I've got a huge story to tell, and we're only halfway down that list. Right then, in 1983 edition of his book, he argued that Kuhn, Loeb and Co., they're on the other computer, that is one of the early offshoots of the Rothschild family, and the House of Morgans were fronts for the Rothschilds. Okay, I've discovered that. It's been portrayed on my website for way over 4 years, and that is the work of Andrew Carrington Hitchcock. Yeah, and in this edition he also outlined how financial interests connected to J. Henry Schroeder Company and the Dulles brothers, that's the Dulles that were involved as the senators for Boston, yeah, in the car where Kennedy was killed, trying to take the central bank for America. Yet that's all 12 of them back into American government hands, which is why he was gunned down, and they've never solved the crime. James Henry Fetzer. Okay, so the Dulleses, yeah, of that region where JFK was killed, yeah, are the people that, with the Schroders of London, in inverted commas, because they had to pull out of there and go to New York right on the eve of World War II. They'd been through all of World War I as profiteers. Yeah? Okay, so in contrast to the claims of his mentor Ezra Pound that Hitler was a sovereign who was completely against the interests of international finance, he also alleged that the Rothschilds, that's Hannah's family that sent the police message to me yesterday, yeah, were world monopolists. He further claimed that most of the stock of the member banks that owned stock in the Federal Reserve was owned by the City of London bankers, since they owned much of the stock of the member banks. He attempted to trace stock ownership as it changed hands via mergers and acquisitions from the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913, when they took down a few Astors to make it look as if, yet the elites were also being harmed in those wars, and the wars allegedly between the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, who are just their slaves. Yeah, all of them out of Bavaria, and that's the bears in the woods jokes, and all of it is ruthless. And all of the nursery rhymes in world history cover up Ali Baba and all of the jokes about Muhammad Ali and the Liverpool religions. Yeah, it's absolutely ruthless. He also criticised the Bilderbergs, attacking it as an international consortium produced by the Rockefeller-Rothschild alliance. That is where Harold Wilson smoked his Piso pipe as the leading socialist in our country, like Tony Blair. Yeah, and Tony Blair talks with Miss Manning and Buller about justifying all of his massive genocides. Yeah, and all of the people that he has placed on the Rothschild boards and has placed in the dukedom or the lordships as life peers in his regime. It is totally ruthless. That's Charles Guthrie of Dundee on the board of the NM Rothschild Bank through all of the Balkans conflict as a NATO field marshal. Same for Mike Jackson and all of their bragging rights about their links still to Rupert Murdoch and the woman that crashed my computer this morning, Rebecca Brooks, and the Innsbruck joke. Yeah, which he claimed helped conduct psychological warfare on the citizens of Britain and the United States. That's the training of all of the double agents in Tavistock in the West Country, being closed now, yeah, being replaced by Huntsville in America and by St. Petersburg in Russia. Yeah, the Federal Reserve System is not federal, it has no reserves, and it is not a system, but rather a criminal syndicate. They get their money for free all over the world. That's what every NATO project has been about. Every country that demands to keep its central bank and to issue its own funds and to keep everything cheap for its public and all of its electorate, that is Gaddafi, what he gave his life for. He's got huge numbers of followers on Facebook. I will try and find them again and post my video on there. It is the product of criminal syndicalist activity of an international consortium of dynastic families comprising what the author terms the world order. Okay, that is a conspiracy. All wars, all sides, all religions, all healthcare systems, yeah, and the best one in the world has been used to try and take me down as an innocent and loving husband, yeah, and the person that was prepared to testify to that was a member of my family, and he is, because of his desertion of my cause, he's also under psychiatric conditions. I want him to understand that, and I want him to get on side, because he's now thousands of pounds in debt because of the Rothschilds frauds against English students. He was a really lucky boy, yeah, that he got that, yeah, and all of what he's doing now is driven by his murderous mother, who was prepared to take me down by sectioning under the NHS. I've never taken drugs in the whole of my life other than paracetamol, occasionally when I get toothache or a headache, very, very rarely. Yeah. Mullins wrote a follow-up to his work on the Federal Reserve in 1985 in a book called The World Order, a study of hegemony on parasitism, updated in 1992 as The World Order, Our Secret Rulers. He argued that the Federal Reserve and other central banks were tools of a Rothschild world system centred in the City of London, which extended its power through organisation like the Royal Institute of International Affairs. 3 weeks after I wrote to the Queen for the 3rd time, she refused to send me a receipt for that 3rd letter, yet like the first 2 polite replies that our administrator sent. She then sent Dr. Ian Fingland and the fake psychiatrists from the BGH, yeah, that's Oostveen, yeah, that is the man called Switzer, yeah, who fucked off from our region and left the local doctors to take all of the reputational fall for that. Okay, various foundations, corporate conglomerates, intelligence agencies, not various, all of them are in royal hands, run by the Rothschilds, like the Bleeding Chamber for Queen Victoria and all of the European monarchs, who are all totally bastardized by all of their activities. And there are the 3 massive videos I've made on the CIA. That's RIIA, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which looks a little bit like the IRA, which they also launched. There's the Queen and the words Chatham House, yeah, and all of my videos. That's the Bill Clinton one, that has been shut down for over a year on the ooh la la eco-bank scams. Yeah, and every one of the presidents creates a foundation, and if you're still alive and the other presidents are dead, like Woodrow Wilson, the others pick it up and carry it on, so that none of the citizens have a life. Yeah, and all of that spills into New Zealand, and that is the, yeah, all of the, and there's the bankers, Hester and Orterio, yeah, the massive fraudsters at the Lloyds Banking Group, and you've seen the links to Hitler and the crashing and sinking of the ships at Lloyds. Okay, HSBC, that's the New World Order banks. Santander, the jokes about religion, they don't exist. That's one of almost 600 videos, or one page of them, and there's my plea to the Rothschilds that they haven't even got the funding now to run their own organisations. All of the money is laundered out of the country, so no one in the business sector pays any tax at all. Yeah, they just issue money to themselves. Why would you need to work or to have a product if you're owning the issuance of 150 billion? That was the figure that was given me, and it must be a decade old now, so that will be trillions of dollars now released only to the private families that run the world. And all of the sporting and social celebrities like Adele and Gascoigne are covers for the people that are issuing the money to themselves. And Adele has become a heroine because of my story that I told about sleeping with someone that looks like her at the Blackheath disco at the rugby club. Okay, so he proposed, did this man, yeah, this very brave man, or unhinged man in their story, he controlled by this interlock of banks, foundations and corporations. That's the Bill Clinton Foundation. That is all of the foundations of every president that ever lived. Yeah, and corporations which acted as a unified force tending towards world monopoly. Yeah, that is the one world order that that Princess Anne believes in and Prince Philip believe in. They want the world population down from 9 billion now to 500 million. It's on the Georgia Guidestones. In 1985, Mullins also wrote a writ for martyrs like me, in which he reproduced a large portion of his FBI file and all of the evidence. Yeah, all of that has been published for years. Michael Matheson, Scottish Justice Secretary, Paul Wheelhouse, John or Julian Callum Lamont, MSP, massive frauds against the people. Michael Moore has taken the fall. Yet for all of you, it will not cover your sins. Tom Weatherston, the false socialist. J. Edward Hoover from Alex Rosen, which suggested having Mullins forcibly committed for his political views. On this memo is a scribbled note from J. Edgar Hoover saying that Mullins' case was a top priority and he needed to be silenced by the FBI. Should see that some action is taken. It's also produced facsimiles of his correspondence with the German and American governments regarding the burning of the German translation of his study of the Federal Reserve. So that's the demonization of the German Jews, of German goods in World War I, and the massive thing that was the extension of that conflict, which is laughed at in the last Blackadder scene as they go to their deaths, in inverted commas. They are sponsored by Walt Disney, yet the biggest Zionist organisation on the globe. In 1988, Mullins wrote Murder by Injection to describe what happens in the healthcare system and Guantanamo, where they get interrogated by electrocution. Yeah, that's ECT in the asylum. Yeah, and that's what my wife was gonna give to me for my present, for my loyalty and my capacity to take on the whole of the corrupted world totally single-handedly. Thank you to John Patterson for trying to get in touch with me again today. I might talk to you this evening. Okay, in 1989 Mullins wrote The Rape of Justice, where he argued that the United States legal system was fundamentally corrupt. Yeah, that is LA Confidential and The Usual Suspects, and it takes you right into the biblical frauds, and all of the people are still the same people. Okay, let's get back next door. Okay, so you've seen that there are 12 banks now, and now we've got a new war monument, graves monument for all of the Gallipoli covers. Yeah, all of a sudden it sprung up. Loads of people killed at Gallipoli as soon as I exposed that Mr. Bean was the war correspondent there. Right, I'll just have to get this computer restarted. Okay, I dare not put music into my videos now. Yep, all of them, since I started to hit on Clinton, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, all of them are being curtailed or shortened, or the soundtrack has been totally removed, like that one was for Bill Clinton over a year ago now. And that is on his massive global warming scams. Okay, so I've read you the directors, and there's the BlackRock investigations, because I've said it was Blackwater in the earlier Clinton videos, and all of those are openly declared on the Little Sis website. Have a look. America is in a terrible state. None of its citizens get a life field, McConnell. Yeah, and I don't know where you sit, because I'm going to cite some of your evidence now. Okay, let's go straight to that. That's the Prime Minister in England's wife, Snowy Cameron, being involved with the company that we're just describing, Schroders, in the coercion and the bringing down of the Twin Towers with the British Royals in 2001. Okay, and where is that tab? It must be. So let's have a look for the links to the Nazis first. And I was looking for the links to the Rothschilds, and all of these headlines just popped up. Or shall we go through the files? So Fink runs the BlackRock company. They're the biggest asset stripping company on the globe. Trillion turnover. Yeah, trillions of dollars. Yeah, every year for asset stripping everything that belongs to the country. Not much of America belonged to America ever, yet because of the efficiency of the Freemasonic presidents. Okay, so the father of this guy, who owns the biggest asset stripping company in the world, guess what they were asked to do in 2008? They were asked to mop up after the crashing of the global banks. Yeah, this is the man that worked originally for the Thingy brothers, the Lehman Brothers. Yeah, his company was the biggest of all, and it was Blackstone. Okay, do you get that? That's the launch of Baroness Blackstone as a completely obfuscation tool into the professoriate in Greenwich University and Kent University, where I twice went for interviews, twice unsuccessful, because I don't know enough, yeah, to get a job at that level. Yeah, I was the professor at the best university in New Zealand in pharmacology, and I've worked for the pharma companies under all of the massive magnates that are Lord Kerr of Kinlochart and the got to pick a pocket or two joke that is the original boss at Imperial when I was there. His name is Sykes, Bill Sykes, in the got to pick a pocket or two parallel jokes. Okay, so do you see it? All of the obfuscation tools that I've told you about Hill-McGraw and Faith Hill and Tim McGraw being singers about Pearl Harbor. It's just a massive set of really expensive cover-ups, and the Fink guy is relatively innocent. I cannot find much to pin on him. He's probably a piezo, and his mate on the board is almost certainly a piezo because of the nomenclature. Can't remember what it was. And his father owned a shoe store like Pinocchio, and all of the jokes about Jesus having no fucking strings, so he can't get home to heaven. Yeah, and look at Lily Allen's air balloon joke, and you'll see that all of religion is just a piss take for profit for the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all of the Illuminati family. For the ball mafias, it is. There we go. There's the Blackstone Group in America. Yeah, that's Tessa Blackstone who scammed us out of the European Channel Tunnel contract. And the Channel Tunnel project was written by the Rothschilds in the 19th century. Yeah, it's their dream. That's Andrew Carrington Hitchcock's work, and it's on my website. Okay, so BlackRock's the biggest. It launches Blackstone, and it then gets subsidiarized into the launch of these other companies. Yeah, and the whole world is asset stripped, and everything that was public then becomes private. And all of the budgetary measures in Parliament are paid for by taxpayers. There's no need for that. Yeah, can you see that I'm not a lazy man? I work unremunerated, but everybody could have a work-free society, and only the billionaires wouldn't have to work. Yeah. And everybody could afford international holidays and airline flights all over the world to meet all of our neighbours instead of shooting them in the back. Okay, the names are huge. Yeah, there's the Dutch mafias, the Stuyvesant Town, Peter Cooper Village. I'm going to move through the tabs because we've spent a lot of time on stuff that is not really sensational. When you get into the boardroom, it changes. Okay, so there's Peter Pederson, yeah, with one T in Jedburgh Sheriff Court. Yeah, massive attempts to have me dismembered financially. Yeah, he's on the board of two of the biggest law firms, like John Lamont is on the big 5 magic circle law firms, and that is another set of legal measures that were used by Hitler and the Nazis in wartime. Okay, there he is. Kind of looks like the singer that sings "It's Over." Yeah, I forget what his name was. Not Gene Pitney, not Elvis, but you remember him from the looks. Okay, so Peter Pederson was former chairman of the Lehman Brothers, Kuhn Loeb. Yeah, and when he's brought into the Blackstone group, they then become the company that they ask after Lehman Brothers and all of the George Soros, JP Morgan crashes, premeditated and totally planned in conspiracy and total awareness of that happening in England. In England it's called the banking crash. In America it's called the reset. Yeah, because they just change the value of everything that they've asset stripped, and they run it as a debt pool now. Every country is in a debt pool. Yeah, that's why all of my videos on Grossart and the Scottish COSLA frauds get shut down by my local councillors, because they are witless enough to understand that they are making themselves really unpopular. When this story comes out, none of them will be electable, particularly John Lamont. Right then. Okay, and all of it, yeah, all of it, everything that gets crashed is a scam in financial services. No one gets a life. Even their own workforce are persecuted by this. Yeah, brother-in-laws, sisters, yeah, all of you that were coerced by Fred Goodwin in this region at the RBS. Okay, and there's it transiting through the Blackstone group period. Yeah, when Tessa is just a junior member and she's not a baroness yet. Yeah, all of it, all of the people that get the knighthoods, yeah, are the villains, and all of the people that get lined up in the straitjackets or in Guantanamo or in the asylum, yeah, like the American Indians are portrayed as being loonies, because they're still spirited enough to remember their own rituals before the Christian fraud came in. That name is very hard to find anywhere on the internet now. Yeah, it's the same usual suspects. Right. So the Rothschilds linkage. Yeah, this took me to my website and all of the citations that I've had there for ages. Okay, let's take you through it. Okay, Rothschild perspective. Kuhn Loeb and Rio Tinto are the Rothschilds already. Okay, so this is the launch of America's new finance systems. It's the fucking Rothschilds out of Frankfurt. Okay, so in 1875 Edward Harriman, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan. Yeah. On January 1st, Jacob Schiff, now Solomon Loeb's son-in-law, after marrying his daughter Teresa, takes control of the banking house Kuhn, Loeb and Company. Schiff goes on to finance the Standard Oil Company of crypto Jew John D. Rockefeller. He also, in Rothschild's bloody raid, yeah, sun's come out now, finances Edward H. Harriman's railroad empire and Andrew Carnegie's steel empire. This is all with Rothschild money. He then identifies the other largest bankers in America at that time. They are J.P. Morgan, who controls the whole of Wall Street, the Drexels and the Biddles. Hope that's not you, Lady Mary Biddulph. Yeah, just a change of a couple of letters, and they're in the Pi Pizzo Philadelphia story. All the other financiers, large and small, would dance to the tune of those three houses. Schiff then gets the European Rothschilds to set up European branches of these three large banks, on the understanding that Schiff, and therefore Rothschild, is to be the boss of banking in New York, and therefore all of America's Feds, all 12 of them. N.M. Rothschild and Sons, that's you, Hannah Mary, and the copper, the copper from London that had the gall to call me and tell me that I am guilty of harassing the Rothschild family, that have done this to the whole world through all of its financial history. N.M. Rothschild and Sons undertake a share issue to raise capital for the first Channel Tunnel project to link France to England. Yeah, what was the date? Okay, 1875. Yeah, just a few years before we're at the head of the Nile Valley and the massive Zulu wars right in the south of the African continent. Okay, issue to raise capital for the first Channel Tunnel project to link France to England. Yeah, Baroness Blackstone walked away with that contract. Yeah, she's on the French, Anglo-French Chamber of Commerce with John Patterson, with one T's man, Norman Baker. Its capital coming from the Rothschild-owned Compagnie de Chemin du Fer du Nord. Yeah, it's absolutely cynical, right? And let's keep going, because this is explaining what happens and why this company that was Hitler's bank is no longer associated with anything other than innocence in London. 1905, the Jewish Encyclopedia states, it is a somewhat curious sequel to the attempt to set up a Catholic competitor to the Rothschilds, that at the present time the latter, that's the Rothschilds, are the guardians of the papal treasure. Yeah, and Hannah's got all of Jesus' holy relics faked up in Wadsden so they can charge a tourist fee. 1906, the Rothschilds claim that due to growing instability in the region and increasing competition from Rockefeller, the Rockefeller family are Rothschild descendants through a female bloodline, all of them out of Bavaria, just to the trans part of the Alpine McAlpine frauds and all the Al Pacino stories that I've told you in midweek. Yeah, when all of my videos were being blocked. Sorry, not being blocked, because that was the religious fraud that is Christianity. Yeah, this is why they sell their Caspian and Black Sea Petroleum Company to Royal Dutch Shell, where the new queen is from Argentina, where the genocides take place. This is another example of the Rothschilds trying to hide their true wealth. Yeah, none of them are on the rich list. None of them through all of world history ever make it on the rich list, nor do the Rockefellers. 1907, Rothschild Jacob Schiff, the head of Kuhn, Loeb and Co., in a speech to the New York Chamber of Commerce, Tessa Blackstone, warns that unless we have a central bank with adequate control of credit resources, this country is going to undergo the most severe and far-reaching money panic in its history. Everything they do is premeditated. All of the people that did it in 2008 are still in power. No one has been replaced or convicted of anything. The man that duped all the borderers into coercion and to be silenced forever, yeah, that includes my relatives and my in-laws, yeah, he has been stripped of his knighthood. That's the only thing that happened to him. Suddenly America finds itself in the middle of another typical run-of-the-mill Rothschild engineered financial crisis. Yeah, everything's a pretend. Yeah, and they get money for nothing through all of world history, which ruins, as usual, the lives of innocent people throughout America and makes billions for the Rothschilds. 1912, now we're 2 years from their greatest triumph. Yeah, in the December issue of Truth magazine, George R. Conroy states of banker Jacob Schiff, Mr. Schiff is head of the great private banking house of Kuhn Loeb and Co., which represents the Rothschilds' interests on this side of the Atlantic. He has been described as financial strategist and has been for years the financial minister of the great impersonal power known as Standard Oil. He was hand in glove with the Harrimans. Yeah, that's the Bill Clinton parentage issue. Do you remember that story? Yeah, sired by Winston Churchill, out of the cigar tube for British American tobacco joke, and that is his mum is a Harriman. Averill, I think, the Goulds, yeah, that becomes the Goldsmiths, and it becomes the Hambros, and it becomes the wife of Imran Khan, and the candidate for the Pakistani presidency in the cricket syndicates. And the Rockefellers in all the railroad. Yeah, I met the Shaughnessy man again this week. He's clearly part of that massive Andrew Carnegie, yeah, and Anderson railroad fraud, and he knows it, and he's declared it for me. He's not ashamed of it, and nor should any of their ancestors be ashamed of it, except the ones that tried to have me sectioned for telling it honestly. Yeah, and they've become the dominant power in the railroad and financial power of America. 1913, not long to go till the 80 million corpses have to be funded by the Poppy Fund, run by Butcher Haig and then run by the royal family in Britain. 1913, the Rothschilds set up the Anti-Defamation League. Yeah, that's why they sent the police call to me yesterday in the United States, designed to brand as anti-Semitic anyone who questions or challenges the global elite. I forget what the name of the police station was. It was Charing Cross, yeah, the religious joke. Yeah, and his name was P.C. Heaton because of all of the conversation that took place between me and John Lamont and Paul Wheelhouse in Heaton on the massive frauds of the Scottish Government and the Royal Monarchy-led treason that is the faked up referendum. Okay, Federal Reserve Act on December the 23rd, 1913. Yeah, that's 1 week before New Year's Day. Yeah, and the launch of the Great Conflict. The Act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. When the President signs this bill, the invisible government of the monetary power will be legalized. The greatest crime of the ages is perpetrated by this banking and currency bill. It is important to note in Rothschild Yellow that the Federal Reserve is a private company. It is neither federal nor does it have any reserve. It is conservatively estimated that profits exceed 150 billion. I don't know whether or not that statement is relevant to 1914. It's certainly not relevant to today. Yet even those massive companies that Fink runs has $1 trillion turnover. Yeah, and that is the selling and reselling of massive pyramid buying scams that are totally worthless in the context of the product. There is no product, it's only coupons and fake shares. And the Federal Reserve has never once in its history published any accounts. That's why the sun's out and the wind is beginning to ripple. Yeah, I'm bold enough to tell this story again despite the repeated attempts to take my life and to take my last breath. Alan Batkin, trained to kill for imperialist expansion by Henry Kissinger and to make a killing at the Lehman Brothers in 2008. Alan Batkin was vice chairman of Eaton Park Capital Management, a large multidisciplinary investment firm, and vice chairman of Kissinger Associates, a geopolitical consulting firm led by former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, the world's biggest killer and the Peace Prize winner. He is currently the chairman of Converse Associates, a strategic consulting firm. From 1972 to 1990, Batkin was an investment banker and managing director at Lehman Brothers. Yeah, flitted out just in time to pretend that their involvement in the real estate crashes had nothing to do with it. All of the banking systems, monetary frauds, and the massive series of interlocked companies that launder that money all around the tax haven globe. He is a trustee and executive committee member of the Brookings Institution and the chairman emeritus of the International Rescue Committee. Neil Goldman, another Lehman brother. Okay, all of that is on my website. All of it was not published by me, and it's not speculated by me. It's done by Andrew Carrington Hitchcock. Yeah, he's now my Facebook friend. Neil Goldman, another Lehman Brothers tool, entrepreneurial presence, and the Council for Foreign Relations. Yeah, that's Cecil Rhodes's creation as we brutalise Zululand, and the Boer War continues apace all around us. And that's the rivers of blood all of the way up to the Nile. And Harold Wilson carpet bombed the Garden of Eden. Yeah, that's the biblical fraud story, the Garden of Eden. Okay, here's McGraw Hill. So Neil Goldman was founder, chairman and CEO of Capital IQ until its sale to the Standard & Poor's division. Yeah, do you get it? Yeah, all of it is a joke, and that is Tim McGraw and Hill, but they're a massive financial institution in America. That is, let's make love all night long, and you'll be there in the Pearl Harbor sequel that is the story about FDR, who was on the Christian Mayflower, his family. He, like Wilson, Woodrow Wilson, said he would never take his kids to war. He totally lied, and all of them are genocidal. And the singers have to divorce because of that. Same with you, Gwyneth Paltrow, you bimbo. Goldman was previously an investment banker, and that's Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin, the religious fraud through all of human history. Goldman was previously an investment banker at Lehman Brothers. He is a term member at the Council on Foreign Relations, and in 2007 was named a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum at Davos in Bavaria, where the bears and the Rothschilds are in the woods, waiting to scare the shit out of you, using all of the Piso Polis, who are prepared to pick up the telephone, yeah, and try and compromise me in my relentless activities of telling the truth to the whole world, or as much as I can reach out to without my videos totally being silenced. Yeah, that's the Donald Trump #3 video. There is no soundtrack on it. The Madonna song was only 4 minutes long, and I conceded to removing that so the soundtrack could be restored. That is the complicity of YouTube. The Prime Minister, yeah, and let's get to the Prime Minister's wives bringing down the Twin Towers. Okay, here we've got the Manning and Buller boards. It's more interesting on here because it's coloured up. Okay, she's the head of MI5. She's on the Schroeder Trust for the pensions and all of it. Greg Hallett told me and told the whole world that Intel runs the pension funds. Yeah, and in charge of Intel you have Prince Philip, because the Queen's too lazy to do it. Okay, and there are Cossers, and all my friends are all over the listings. Yeah, those genuine friends. The Cossers are really nice. Yeah, and Miss Manning and Buller this is the Wellcome Trust. Okay, Cadbury's, Browns, Buffinis, Bonhoeffers, Casalets, Cooksies. Yeah, that's, and so Miss Manning and Buller is on the bottom of the list. and there she is, Elizabeth Lydia, yeah, the Lydia joke about the lady with the tattoos, Manning and Buller, director at the Wellcome Trust. This is where it's the only place where university academics get funding from. They have to beg for it now. Henry Wellcome went down the Nile Valley, and he went into Ethiopia, and he visited the Garden of Eden for a laugh. And he used to be my biggest hero in life, because I worked for them, and their pension was decent at that time. Yeah, I'm not able to live on any income now. Yeah, my wife's taken it all from me. Half of my home goes soon. Yeah, and all hell will let loose when the gods see that happening in front of them. Right then, so, and the Rigbys are on it. That's the Rigbys of the HSBC and the Ronnie Barker comedies. Yeah, yeah, that are covers for the law enforcers. William Burns is on it. Okay, the Rutherford mafias are on it. Okay, and Arnott and the Mandersons. Yeah, and the Moira Anderson killings, and all of British news is just a fraud. Okay, I wanted to find the little bit in the corner that tells you more about Elizabeth Lydia Manning and Buller. Okay, there she is. The foundation of the college she's a director on from 2015 to 2016. She's going to regret not talking to me genially. The foundation of the College of St George, Windsor Castle. Have you heard of Windsor Castle before? Gifted to them by blind Prince George of Cumbria, yeah, who was shafted out of the kingdom, and his only son by Queen Victoria was killed by George VII, the great fat Windsor. Elizabeth Lydia Manning and Buller, director, Arc Data Centres Limited. Elizabeth Lydia Manning and Buller, the foundation of the College of St George, Windsor Castle. Yeah, that's the non-existent Christian saints frauds. Yeah, and this is the head of British Intel for ages and ages and ages, and she was in the Chipping Norton donut-shaped place that is the MI5 boss's place, and it is a dead ringer for the Pentagon building that they had terrorised themselves. Yeah, and she and Tony Blair appear all the time making news that we need to kill the people in Islam that are part of the massive joke that I'm going to tell you about in the religion. Okay, the Pollen Estate Trustee Company Limited, Elizabeth Lydia Manning and Buller, Genome Research Limited. Yeah, this is all the scientific frauds, and that becomes forensic policing. And the killing of Moira Anderson to cover Arnott Manderson, who covered the illegitimate referendum and the stealing of Scotland and the renewal of that when Alex Salomon Rothschild was in charge. Elizabeth Manning and Buller, director of the foundation of the College of St George, Windsor Castle. Okay, she's got loads more. Yeah, I can find them for you at a later date if you want. Okay, and Stella Remington and all of them are just the same. And you should see what Kev Kinlocker does in the Brexit EU scams. He and Tony Blair are totally in charge of that as unelected officers. Okay, the Nazis Bank SCHRODER. Okay, it's going to take a wee bit of time, so what else can we do? I think that's the Schroeder. Okay, so here we go. Quite amazing, but this financier in London is a legend. They still have dozens, hundreds of family directors. I think I found, I think it was 600 corporates under the name Schroeder in the British Business Register alone. Yeah, where and this is takes you into the Liverpool jokes and the Liverpool slaving empire, but that is the links to Islam. Muhammad Ali was he was given his money by Lord Macartney of Liverpool. Yeah, that's in India, and the launch of the Indian gods is the launch of Baber, the elephant. Yeah, and all of the elephant jokes. Have you seen the little man sitting with his legs crossed and his trunk sticking down between his ivory icons? and the British Royals go there and shoot them, or shoot off their backs, all of the rare species that they're supposed to be looking after in the World Wildlife Fund. Okay, so this is the joke about the god Baal, Ali Baba, and all of the people. Yeah, because what happens is that a religion called Baha'ism, yeah, is funded by Hitler's Bank, yeah, in Liverpool. Okay, the Baha'is of Liverpool, where Muhammad Ali got his loans to create Babar, the elephant god in India, yeah, and all of the Taj Mahal jokes for the Trumps, who's got his middle name is his dad's middle name is Jesus Trump. Sorry, Christ Trump. Yeah, it's guy in a scare at Roxburgh Castle that uses the Ineos in a scare Jesus joke. Okay, and that's the restaurants that Donald runs all over the world. Yeah, and all of it is now attempting to launch World War III. This is the Sunni Muslims and the Babar. I've just looked up Babar and I got a series of images, and let's try and scan down. There's a Henderson got in my way. Yeah, that's the people that used to run the Black Swan. Yeah, my best friends in life, in inverted commas. Yeah, tried to get me married off to their cousin, because she is the daughter of Police Superintendent Henderson. Sunni Islam, Babur. Yeah, so here he is. Religion is Sunni England, and this is the nickname for Tom Weatherspoon's brother. He's a drug runner, as alleged. Yeah, he was a school bully. He used to terrify me when I was a kid. Yeah, and when Hoyk won the lottery, he was all over the supermarket here. I've no doubt I'll see him again tonight. His brother Pete is a stammering person. He's in the law courts every time I go there. His brother is the councillor that was a false socialist and is now a conservative, because it's the only way you can get elected. Okay, and every night the Babar comedies and all of the little elephant jokes, and the Oliphants live in my region. They're really decent people. They've seen the light and they see my power, and they talk to me openly all the time. Yeah, and they have been scammed out of their house by Rory Bremner and Michael Ancram and the Lothians. Yeah, I cannot inform you of my source on that. He's a great big guy, and he could well be the man that plays the German that holds the head up in Kielder Forest when the gladiator gets his reply from the Germanic nation. Yeah, they say no Quintus. Yeah, and that's the Quintus companies that are run by Duke of Roxburgh, and all of it is an interlocking joke. Okay, and it's just massive. So the interlocks of the Schroders are really quite interesting. Okay, and that's what we've seen at the beginning. So I'll take you now to the company check websites, so you can see how many hundreds of these there are. And there's the outline of the Baha'i faith. Okay, so the Schroders run the Baha'i religious funding in fucking Liverpool. Yeah, that's the yellow submarine joke. It's the training of Hitler Rothschild, who was an Everton supporter. Yeah, selections from the writings of the Bab. And do you know what noise a sheep makes if it's behaving properly and is being led along with the shepherd's crook? Yeah, all of it takes you back to Bethlehem and the Innsbruck jokes about no room at the inn. Okay, and it's just sick. Okay, do you get it? Ba, ba, ba. Yeah, it's the god Baal. It is all of the Balaam jokes, and Balaam is right next door to where the Pilgrim Fathers landed. Okay, and that's what it is. It's just massive. Outline of the Baha'i. Yeah, Baha. Do you get it? Just an overt joke at the noise that the sheep makes, and the joke, yeah, and the laugh that is the belly laugh of every great conflict, being led by the demonization of all of the Piso written frauds. Yeah, and you can see Abdullah coming in. you can see the genuine change of, yeah, this is the Shah of Persia, the racehorse empire. That's the Aga Khan and all of the Pisa horses, yeah, and all of the race meetings were getting ready for the Grand National again. It's all over the papers. Yeah, like all of the false news to cover my stories, and the Belgian terror last week was pathetic. And I was trying to find on the other computer when I stumbled on the Nazi links of the Schroders. Yeah, I was trying to find the Free Belgians and the Free French that live in the no bombing zones in Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Buckinghamshire, and all of them have still got their boardrooms tenanted, and all of it is a massive set of financial frauds. Okay, so the company that was BlackRock has now was given by the American Treasury that crashed its own banks. It was given the mopping up contract. All of them, and they are the people in the story about David Cameron's wife Snowy. She was involved in the coercion and the bringing down of the Twin Towers using things called snuff films. Yes, so they coerce, even people like George Bush gets coerced because they picture him naked, and all of a sudden that renders them totally powerless. Okay, and there's Fink on, there's where we went on the company directors for the woman that is associated with she's associated with the massive interlocks, and there's the Gresham Street. So Gus Grisham was the man that shot the pooch. Yeah, and one of the jokes in these stories is that the God story, also cited in the run-up in the financial services thing. You've got a company called is a notable gigolo in world history, but I don't think I'll tell you that story. I'm going to get on with showing you how many directorates there are. Okay, so this is, they're in Gresham, London. That doesn't have a postcode on it, and we could go down and we could see the magnitude of the boards. Okay, so Lord Stevenson of Co-Henry Denniston Stevenson, nothing big. All the money laundering companies that Gordon Bergen and I have picked apart. Okay, Schroeder Ventures, all of it. Okay, and at the bottom of the listings, Miss Janet Ann Ford, Hugh Westrop Bolland, Mr. Anthony William Hodgsman Palfreyman. There are hundreds of them. Yeah, 23 pages. That's 230 directors, all of them running massive institutional frauds. Yeah, and they had to leave London in 1939, because, for obvious reasons. Guess who they're funding? Yeah, and you should look at their website. It's absolutely pathetic. They've got these poetic videos showing their history, and when you pull it apart like this and you look at other sources of information, you can see that it's just genocide for cash, and all of the shareholding scams are absolutely ruthless. So shall we go to page 23 and see which monarchs or which aristocrats or which knights of the realm are listed on that? Okay, let's go backwards and see some of the famous names that we found. So that's Hannah Clare Ashdown, yeah, and she's got 230 interlocking directors, just one of the directorate. Okay, Hannah Clare Ashdown, 31 Gresham Street, London, doesn't give a postcode, and when they know I'm coming, loads of these get crashed. Yeah, same for Rory Bremner's relatives in Hawick. Okay, resigned directorships 105, close directorships 13, active directorships zippo. Can you see how potent my research is? Yeah, and why they wanted me in the straitjacket? with the intramuscular injection going slightly wrong and going into my vein and stopping my breathing movements. Dr. Ian Fingland, PC Ian Fingland. Okay, and all of them get 40% of their salary to cheat their patients by giving them too many drugs by volume. Okay, let's go back and let's see who else we find.